This is Council Bluffs Today, presented by Waldstein Plumbing. Hi, I am Todd Studer. We've been doing a series on the history in Council Bluffs, and we have another installment on that for you today. It's at the head of Lafayette Avenue in Council Bluffs. There's a dark bronze angel leaning forward from the prow of a stone ship. One arm reaches outward, the other cradles a basin of water. And for more than a century, people have called her the Black Angel. Around her name, there's been ghost stories, whispered dares, local legends, and late-night rumors. But the real story, it's not a ghost story. It is much quieter than that, and it is also stranger than that, and in many ways, more powerful than that. This monument was not created from folklore. It was created from a dream described by a dying woman in the final days of her life. It was shaped by daughters who wanted to preserve their mother's last vision. It was designed by two artists whose names are also tied to the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. And it stands today as one of the most remarkable works of public art in the American Midwest. To understand the Black Angel, we have to look past the legends. We have to begin with the object itself: bronze, marble, water, memory, grief, and a single word spoken in a dream: drink. So, if you travel to the intersection of North 2nd Street and Lafayette Avenue on the eastern edge of Council Bluffs, you find yourself near the historic grounds of Fairview Cemetery. The place is elevated, it's quiet, and it's removed from all the movement going on in town. From the hillside, the land looks westward toward the Missouri River Valley. It's the same corridor that once shaped the destiny of railroads, of migration, commerce, and settlement all across the continent. There, standing on a terraced platform, is a monument cast of bronze and carved pink marble. Its formal name is the Ruth Ann Dodge Memorial, but most people in Council Bluffs know it by another name, the Black Angel. The figure is 8.5 feet tall, and not standing on a normal pedestal. She stands on the prow of a ship, leaning forward as though the vessel is gliding silently toward the viewer. Her right arm extends outward in a gesture that seems both welcoming and commanding. Her left arm holds a shallow basin wreathed in laurel leaves. Her robes are heavy and classical, but they don't just hang lifelessly. They twist and fold around her body as if they were caught by a wind coming off of some unseen water. Her wings rise behind her with a sense of weight and structure. Her face looks downward, serene but serious, as though she's addressing someone standing below. The bronze has darkened over time. More than a century of weather has changed its surface, giving the figure the green-black patina that helped create its popular name. Beneath it, the pink marble base remains pale by contrast, carved into the form of a ship's prow and decorated with garland-like ornament. It's easy to assume at first glance that this is a grave marker. The memorial stands beside a cemetery, and its subject was a woman who had recently died. But Ruth Ann Dodge is not buried beneath the angel. It's not a headstone, and it's not a simple cemetery monument. It's something more unusual, a three-dimensional interpretation of a deathbed vision. Every central detail of the monument, the angel, the ship, the water basin, the forward gesture, comes from a recurring dream that Ruth Ann Dodge reportedly described shortly before her death in 1916. Her daughters believed that dream mattered. They believed it was worthy of permanent form, and because the Dodge family had wealth, they had influence and access to elite artistic circles, they were able to commission a memorial unlike almost anything else in Iowa. They hired Daniel Chester French, one of the most celebrated American sculptors of his generation. French had already created the Minuteman in Concord, Massachusetts, and would become world famous for the seated Abraham Lincoln inside the Lincoln Memorial. They also worked with Henry Bacon, the architect who designed the Lincoln Memorial itself. Together, French and Bacon created a memorial that was both deeply private and unmistakably public. It was rooted in one family's grief, but it was built at civic scale. It was inspired by a dream and then executed with the discipline, materials, and ambition of major public art. That tension is what makes the Black Angel so compelling. It is at once intimate and monumental. It is a family memorial. It's a work of Beaux Art sculpture, a historic landmark, and a local mystery. So over time, legends gathered around it. People told stories about the angel's eyes following passersby, about the statue moving at night, about curses or strange happenings near the site. Those stories are part of the monument's public life, but they are not the foundation of its history. The verified story is already rich enough. It begins with a powerful family, a dying matriarch, and a dream of water appearing through mist. So, to understand why the Ruth Ann Dodge Memorial was built on such a grand scale, we need to understand the family behind it. Ruth Ann Brown married Grenville Mellon Dodge in 1854, and at the time, neither of them could have known just how central the Dodge name would become to the history of Council Bluffs, also the American railroad system and the post-Civil War expansion of the United States. Grenville Dodge rose first through military service. During the Civil War, he served as a Union general and worked closely with major figures in the Union command, including General William Tecumseh Sherman. He developed a reputation not only as a soldier, but as an organizer, an engineer, and a strategist. After the war, Dodge moved into the work that would make him nationally significant. He became chief engineer for the Union Pacific Railroad, played a major role in the construction of the first transcontinental railroad. That railroad did more than connect tracks across a map. It transformed the movement of people, goods, military power, and political influence across North America. Council Bluffs became deeply tied to that story. The city's position along the Missouri River and its connection to the railroad made it an important gateway between East and West. The Dodge family's prominence grew along with that transformation. In Council Bluffs, the family built a large Victorian mansion, and you've seen it. It's at 605 3rd Street. The house has 14 rooms and has become more than a private residence. It functioned as a social and political center, a place where military leaders, railroad executives, politicians, and national figures could be received. Ruth Ann Dodge lived at the center of this world. While her husband traveled, managed railroad interests, and moved through military and political circles, Ruth Ann carried the responsibilities of family life, household management, social obligations, philanthropy, and community presence. She was not just the wife of a famous man. She was the matriarch of one of Council Bluffs' most influential families. Her life was shaped by wealth and status, but also by the duties and expectations placed on women of her position in the 19th and early 20th centuries. By 1916, however, the family had entered a season of loss. General Dodge died on January 3rd of that year. Ruth Ann, already elderly and seriously ill, was suffering from cancer. By late summer, she was confined to bed in the family home. Now, in those final weeks, according to accounts that were preserved by her daughters, Ruth Ann began experiencing a recurring dream. It was not described as a vague impression or a confused hallucination. It had a clear setting, repeated structure, and specific imagery. In the dream, Ruth Ann found herself standing alone on a dark, rocky shore, and the land beneath her was hard and unfamiliar. Before her stretched water, but the surface was obscured by fog and mist. She could not see far into it. The scene was quiet, suspended, and expectant. Then a shape appeared in the mist. Slowly, a small boat came toward the shore, and at the front of the boat stood a young woman of extraordinary beauty. Ruth Ann understood that figure to be an angel. The angel wore long, flowing robes, and her wings were folded behind her. In one arm, she carried a shallow bowl or basin filled with water. As the boat drew near, the angel extended her other arm toward Ruth Ann. Then she spoke softly. "Drink." On the first night, Ruth Ann did not accept. She hesitated, refused the invitation, and the vision faded. On the second night, the dream returned. The same shore, the same mist, the same small boat, the same angel, and that same basin of water. Again, the angel invited her to drink, and again, Ruth Ann refused. And then on the third night, the dream came once more, but this time Ruth Ann's response changed. She accepted the vessel, and she drank from it. When she awoke, she called her daughters to her bedside and told them what had happened. She said the angel had offered her the water of life, and said after drinking she felt transformed into a new and glorious spiritual being. Soon afterwards, on September 5th, 1916, Ruth Ann Dodge died at the age of 84. For her daughters, that final vision became inseparable from their mother's death. It gave shape to the transition that they had just witnessed. It turned fear into acceptance, illness into transformation, and death into passage. They wanted to hold on to that image, not just in memory, and not just in words. They wanted it built. Council Bluffs today is brought to you by Keith Jones, your Edward Jones financial advisor in Council Bluffs. Learn how he can help you reach your financial goals. Visit edwardjones.com for more. Edward Jones, member SIPC. S&B Country Kennel is the top spot in Southwest Iowa when you need to know your dog will receive only the best. Boarding, daycare, grooming, self-washing, training, and even a membership available to a dog park over an acre in size. S&B Country Kennel also has rescue dogs, so check with them about adoption possibilities. sbcountrykennel.com, that's country spelled with a K, located just west of I-29 on Bungie Avenue, south of Council Bluffs. After Ruth Ann's death, her daughters Ann Dodge and Ella Dodge Pusey began planning a memorial. Some accounts also connect the broader Dodge daughters circle to the family's commemorative efforts, but Ann and Ella are most often identified with the commission itself. They did not want a standard monument from a local stone yard. They didn't want a simple inscription, an urn, or an angel copied from a catalog. Their mother's dream had been specific, and they wanted the memorial to be specific as well. The angel had to stand at the front of a boat. She had to hold water. She had to reach outward. The work had to preserve a scene, not merely symbolize one. To achieve that, the family turned to Daniel Chester French. By the late 1910s, French was among the most respected sculptors in the United States. His style combined classical training, emotional restraint, and a strong sense of public dignity, and he was comfortable working at monumental scale. He understood how sculpture could function in civic space. French's earlier work, The Minuteman and Concord, had already secured his reputation. His later work on the seated Abraham Lincoln would make him one of the best-known sculptors in American history. At the same time, the Dodge Commission was developing. French and Henry Bacon were involved in the larger world of memorial design that culminated in the Lincoln Memorial. For the Dodge daughters, hiring French meant placing their mother's dream in the hands of an artist capable of giving it national-level artistic seriousness. But the sculptor alone was not enough. The dream had a setting. It was not simply an angel in isolation. It was an angel arriving by boat through mist and water. The memorial needed architecture. It needed landscape and spatial drama. That is where Henry Bacon entered the project. Bacon was French's frequent collaborator and one of the major American architects of the period. His task was to design the physical environment that would support the bronze figure and complete the illusion of the dream. Bacon designed a base and setting that transformed the statue into a scene. The angel would not stand on a plain pedestal. She would stand on a pedestal shaped like the prow of a ship. The marble would suggest forward motion. Beneath and around it, a pool would evoke the water from Ruth Ann's vision. The choice of pink marble gave the base a warmth and visual contrast against the bronze. The carved garland decoration added classical ornament, while softening the mass of the ship-like form. The platform and reflecting pool created a place for viewers to stand below and look up, recreating in physical space the moment when Ruth Ann saw the angel approaching from the water. This was the genius of the design. The viewer does not simply observe the angel. The viewer is placed in Ruth Ann's position. Standing before the memorial, you become the person on the shore. The angel leans toward you. The hand reaches toward you. The basin is offered to you. In that sense, the monument is not just representational. It is experiential. It stages the dream. So for Council Bluffs, the commission was extraordinary. A private memorial for a local family was being designed by the same artistic partnership associated with one of the most important national memorials in the United States. The result would be one of the only works by Daniel Chester French in Iowa and one of the most significant pieces of public sculpture in the region. But for the Dodge daughters, the importance was not only artistic, it was personal. They were translating their mother's last words, last dream, and last sense of peace into bronze and stone. That combination, family grief and artistic ambition, is what gives the Black Angel its unusual emotional force. It does not feel like a generic memorial. It feels like a moment captured just before it disappears. Daniel Chester French began the creative work from his studio at Chesterwood in Stockbridge, Massachusetts. Chesterwood was not just a workspace, it was the environment where French refined ideas, studied models, prepared sketches, and worked through the technical problems of monumental sculpture. For the Ruth Ann Dodge Memorial, the technical problem was significant. The angel had to lean forward from the prow of a ship. Her right arm had to extend outward. Her left arm had to support the basin. Her wings had to rise behind her. The whole figure had to appear graceful and alive, while also remaining structurally stable as a heavy bronze sculpture exposed to outdoor conditions. French began, as sculptors often do, with drawings and small models. The early studies allowed him to explore the pose, the gesture, and the distribution of weight. A figure leaning forward can easily look awkward and unstable, or theatrical in the wrong way. French had to make the angel feel as if she were moving toward the viewer without losing the dignity of a memorial. The robes became essential to that balance. They helped unify the body, conceal structural transitions, and create the sense of wind and motion. French was known for his skill with drapery, and in the Black Angel, the folds are not just decorative. They carry the motion of the figure. They make the bronze feel fluid. The wings also require careful handling. Angel wings in sculptures can easily become flat symbols. French treated them as physical forms with weight, texture, and layered feathers. They rise behind the figure with enough strength to make the angel feel otherworldly, but not so much that she becomes abstract or remote. The face is perhaps the most important element. The angel does not smile broadly. She does not look stern. She does not appear triumphant. Her expression is calm, solemn, compassionate, and inward. She seems to know the seriousness of what she's offering. Her gaze angles downward toward the viewer. Her mouth is slightly open, allowing the sculpture to suggest speech without becoming theatrical. In the context of Ruth Ann's dream, that speech is that single word, drink. The model for the angel is commonly identified as Audrey Munson, one of the most famous artist models of the Beaux Arts era. Munson's likeness appeared in numerous sculptures and public works in the early 20th century, and she was widely associated with the classical idea of the period. Her connection to the Black Angel adds another layer to the story. Munson's later life was marked by hardship and isolation, and modern accounts often connect that tragedy to the darker aura that has gathered around the monument. But the memorial itself was not designed as a monument to tragedy in Munson's life. It was designed as a memorial to Ruth Ann Dodge's vision. Once French completed the full-scale model, the sculpture had to be translated into bronze. That work was carried out by Roman Bronze Works in New York, one of the leading art foundries in the United States. The casting process required the sculpture to be molded, sectioned, cast, assembled, and finished with great precision. Bronze casting at this scale is both artistic and industrial. The foundry had to preserve French's modeling, the folds of cloth, the feathers, the facial expression, the hand gesture, while producing a durable object capable of standing outdoors for generations. After the bronze sections were cast, they were joined and finished. Seams were chased and refined so they would not interrupt the surface. The figure was given a patina, a controlled surface treatment that gave the bronze depth and tone. When first completed, the color would not have been the same dark green-black that you can see today. The darkness developed through time, weather, oxidation, and exposure. It is the slow work of the Midwestern climate on bronze. And yet, that aging process became part of the memorial's identity. The public name Black Angel depends on time. It depends on the statue changing, darkening, and becoming visually more mysterious than it may have appeared when new. When the bronze was ready, it was sent west to Council Bluffs. There, Henry Bacon's marble base and architectural setting were prepared to receive it. The dream was about to become a permanent object in the landscape. Service Master Restore by Schmader knows it can be hard to get things back to normal when you've suffered serious property damage due to flooding, fire, or smoke. and that can oftentimes lead to mold, and you may be left with all sorts of questions about how to get your home or business back to normal. It's easy. You give Cindy Schmader a call with Service Master Restore by Schmader. Her phone number, 402-339-9911. If you're looking for a laid-back spot with great food and even better company, it's the Mile Away on Old Lincoln Highway north of Council Bluffs. This family-run bar and grill is your go-to for mouth-watering wings, unbeatable weekly specials, and a welcoming atmosphere that feels like home. So, if you're catching a game, enjoying one of those specials, or just unwinding after a long day, the Mile Away has you covered. Open every day, Tuesday through Sunday at 8 for breakfast, and don't forget them at lunch and dinner time as well. It's the Mile Away, Old Lincoln Highway, north of Council Bluffs. By the late 1919 and early 1920, the elements of the memorial were coming together near Fairview Cemetery. The site had been prepared. The stone platform and pool had been constructed. The pink marble prow had been installed. Finally, the bronze angel was placed above it, looking outward from the ship. The original memorial was also a fountain. Water was part of the concept, not an afterthought. The basin in the angel's arm and the pool below connected the object directly to the dream's central image, the water of life. The Dodge daughters initially planned a public dedication worthy of the family status and the artists involved, and really wasn't all that unreasonable to imagine a major civic event. The Dodge name was deeply tied to Council Bluffs. The artists were nationally important. The memorial itself, unlike anything else in the city. But the grand public dedication did not happen in the way many expected. Local historical accounts describe a planned ceremony that became smaller, quieter, or effectively unannounced. The reasons remain part of the memorial's continuing mystery. Some accounts emphasize family discomfort with the finished statue or with public attention. Others point to the personal grief, family tensions, health concerns, and national instability of the period. This was when President Woodrow Wilson had suffered a major stroke that happened in 1919, and the public life of the country was strained by the aftermath of World War I, political conflict, and social change. What can be said with confidence is this: a monument that seemed destined for a grand ceremonial unveiling entered public life in a much quieter way. That quiet beginning may have contributed to the aura around the Black Angel. The sculpture was too significant to ignore, but its dedication did not fully explain it to the public. It stood there, dramatic and unusual, and inviting questions. Why an angel on a boat? Why a basin of water? Why such a powerful work of art at the edge of a cemetery? Why was the public ceremony subdued? Questions create stories. Stories create legends, and over the decades, the Black Angel became not only a memorial, but a landmark of local imagination. People began telling tales about the statue. Some said its eyes followed you. Some said the steps changed number as you walked them. Some said photographs failed or strange things happened near the site. These are not verified historical facts, but they are part of the folklore that often grows around objects associated with death, beauty, and ambiguity. The actual history is more grounded, but no less compelling. The Ruth Ann Dodge Memorial was listed on the National Register of Historic Places in 1980. That listing recognized its artistic and historical importance. Later, in 2007, the memorial was included as a contributing property within the Lincoln Fairview Historic District. The surrounding site has changed over time. The original fountain and reflecting pool have been altered and restored in different ways as preservation needs changed. Water, which was central to the original symbolism, also created practical maintenance challenges for stone, bronze, and foundations. Even with those changes, the core image remains intact: the angel, the basin, the prow, the invitation. Today, standing before the Black Angel, you're looking at several histories at once. You're seeing the Dodge family's wealth and grief. You're seeing the artistic language of Daniel Chester French and Henry Bacon. You're seeing the spiritual imagination of Ruth Ann Dodge's final days. You're seeing the way a city receives, reshapes, and retells the meaning of a monument across generations. That is why the Black Angel continues to matter. Not because it's haunted, not because the stories that turn it into a dare, but because it sits at the intersection of art, death, memory, and place. The monument asks a question without speaking it directly. How do we give form to something that cannot be held? How do we preserve a dream? For Ann Dodge and Ella Dodge Pusey, the answer was to commission one of the great sculptors in America. For Daniel Chester French, the answer was bronze. For Henry Bacon, it was marble, water, and architectural space. For Council Bluffs, the answer has been memory. More than a century later, the angel still leans forward from the prow of a ship. Her hand is still extended. The basin is still offered, and the face is still calm. And the word at the heart of the story remains the same: drink. The Black Angel is often introduced through legend. That is understandable. A dark angel beside a cemetery standing above a quiet street is almost designed to attract stories. Human beings make myths around objects like this because they seem to demand explanation. But when we return to the documented story, the monument becomes more moving, not less. It's not diminished by removing the ghost stories, it becomes clearer. At its center is an elderly woman facing death after a life spent in one of the most prominent families in Council Bluffs. Around her are daughters trying to interpret and preserve what their mother told them. Behind them is the immense railroad wealth that made the commission possible. Before them is an artist capable of turning a private account into public form. The result is a memorial that refuses to be simple. It is religious, but not tied to a church. It is public, but born from a private bedroom. It is classical in style, but based on a modern family's grief. It is beautiful, but it's not decorative. It asks visitors to stand where Ruth Ann stood in the dream, on the shore, facing mist, watching something approach. That may be why the memorial continues to hold attention. Death is often imagined as darkness, silence, or disappearance. Ruth Ann's dream imagined it as arrival. A boat comes closer and an angel offers water. The final gesture is not fear, but acceptance. Whether one reads that dream spiritually, psychologically, symbolically, or historically, it has emotional power. It gave Ruth Ann peace. It gave her daughters an image. And it gave Council Bluffs one of its most enduring landmarks. There you go. The story of the Black Angel. My name is Todd Studer. This is Council Bluffs Today, presented by Waldstein Plumbing. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.